Yo, what up? It's Fitness65 again, back with another video. Now, this is part 2 of my review of WrestleMania 6. Now, we go to the next matchup, which was between the Orient Express against the Rockers. This was a very good matchup, high, fast-paced action. You had the Rockers hit some very good moves in this match, some good moves on the outside of the ring. You had the Orient Express use some good moves in this matchup, and this was just overall a very good matchup. I mean, it's not better than the Royal Rumble 1991 or 1990 match that they had against each other, but it's still a very good matchup. Really enjoyed this matchup. The end came when Mr. Fuji, I guess, hit Marty Jannetty when Marty Jannetty was going to go for their finishing move, and Marty Jannetty came to confront Mr. Fuji, and then Mr. Fuji ended up throwing salt in Marty Jannetty's eyes, and that ended with the match being a count out. But overall, this matchup was good. I give it 3 3/4 stars, as this was a very good matchup, but it's not as good as the Royal Rumble 1991 matchup, as they would have even better matchup than this, but still very good matchup, and probably one of the best matches on the night on that card. We then go to another dud matchup, which was between Dino Bravo against Hacksaw Jim Duggan. This was not a very good matchup. It was mostly Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Dino Bravo brawling, and then Dino Bravo hitting some moves, and then Hacksaw Jim Duggan was going to go for the 3-point stance, and then Jimmy Hart or Earthquake, one of those two, distracted him or whatever, and they threw the 2x4 in there, but Hacksaw Jim Duggan grabbed it when the referee was distracted with Jimmy Hart, and then he hit Dino Bravo with the 2x4, causing the DQ. Overall, not a good matchup. Then the end came when Earthquake attacked Jim Duggan from behind and did the splash on him to sort of have the heels leave by doing their job. But overall, not a good matchup. I give this matchup a dud. Terrible matchup. We then go to the matchup for the $1 Million belt, which was between Jake the Snake Roberts, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase against Jake the Snake Roberts. This was an okay matchup. You had Jake the Snake Roberts hit some nice moves. Ted DiBiase, being Ted DiBiase, hitting his usual offense in this matchup. Then the end came when, I guess, the two got counted out, or one of them got counted out. I'm not sure. I forgot how that match ended, but I know it ended in a count out, and thus I guess this was supposed to be the thing that sort of continued the feud, but the feud never continued after this, as this was probably the blow off to their feud right here. But overall, it was a good 2-star matchup, mainly because of Ted DiBiase doing what he usually bringing his A game and sort of getting something out of Jake Roberts, and Jake Roberts doing what he can in this matchup. But overall, I give this 2 stars. This was a good matchup for what it was. We then go to the next matchup on here, which was the Twin Towers Explode. Another one of those guys tag teams who broke up. It was Akeem and the Big Boss Man. Now, the build-up to this matchup was pretty good, with Big Boss Man not wanting to take money from the $1 Million Man, but Akeem wanting to take money. So Akeem and Slick try to beat down the Big Boss Man for not taking money, and then Big Boss Man wanting to get his revenge, and thus it sets up this matchup here. This was pretty much a good star or 2-star matchup. I mean, it was pretty short. You had Akeem. You had $1 Million Man beat down the Big Boss Man for a little bit, and then Akeem beat down the Big Boss Man and do his usual power moves. He had a splash in the corner, and then it looked like he was gonna finish things off, but Big Boss Man mounted the comeback, and then he hit the sidewalk slam to end things, and that was pretty much your matchup right there. I give it a star because there was some entertaining aspects of this matchup, but overall, this matchup was too short. But like I said, I give it a star, and that's pretty generous for this matchup. We then go to a segment with Rhythm and Blues performing Hunka Hunka Love, which was a pretty good segment. You had them coming in that car. I forgot what kind of car that was that came in. You had DDP being the chauffeur, making his WrestleMania debut, driving that car for them. You had Rhythm and Blues sing their song, and then during the middle of the song, the Bushwhackers came and they sort of beat them down. Yeah, it was a Cadillac. My bad. It was a Cadillac. Then you had the Bushwhackers come in, and they ended up beating Rhythm and Blues down. And then they destroyed their guitars, and that was pretty much the end of that segment. Then we move on to the next match, which was we move on to the next matchup, which was between Rick Rude against Jimmy Superfly Snuka. This was a pretty good matchup. You had Rude, who was the cocky young heel, sort of disrespecting the legend, who was Jimmy Superfly Snuka, by taunting him through the whole match. Then you had Jimmy Superfly Snuka hit a nice backdrop on him, and then he was taunting him, and then taunting him again when he hit some nice moves on him. And then the end came when I guess Jimmy Superfly Snuka missed a move or something like that, and then Rick Rude hit the Rude Awakening. That was pretty much the end of your matchup. This matchup could have went on a little bit longer, but for what it was a pretty good matchup, and I give this match 2 stars, as this was a very enjoyable matchup, and I enjoyed it. We then move on to the main event, which was the title matchup for the IC title and the Intercontinental Championship and the WWF title, like both titles being on the line. It was Hulk Hogan against the Ultimate Warrior. This was a very good matchup. I enjoyed this matchup. This matchup was one of the matches where both faces had the crowd in the palm of their hand. They hit some pretty nice moves. You had the crowd sort of went one way and then the other way during this matchup, sort of reminiscent of the Hulk Hogan Rock matchup, as that matchup was sort of like the same way how this matchup was, as you had the crowd siding with Warrior, then you had the crowd siding with Hogan, and it was just a pretty good moment. And then you had Hulk Hogan sort of sell in this matchup where he did a move or something and he ended up hurting his knee. Warrior was working on the knee throughout most of this matchup, and then Hulk Hogan sort of had his mount. He had his offense in this, hit some nice moves. Then you had both guys do a double clothesline spot in this matchup, and then of course you had Hulk Hogan mount his offense where he hit the big boot to the face on the Ultimate Warrior, and then he hit the leg drop, and then he pinned the Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior kicked out. Ultimate Warrior did the same thing. He had the shoulder block, the clothesline, and then he hit the Gorilla Press Slam, and then he did the splash on the Hogan, but Hogan kicked out. And Warrior was wondering what it would take to beat Hulk Hogan, so he ended up doing the splash. He ended up doing the Gorilla Press Slam again to Hulk Hogan, and then he splashed him on his back, and that'd be pretty much the end of your matchup. Overall, the wrestling was okay in this matchup, but the reason this matchup was good was mainly the crowd. The crowd was really into this matchup. They sort of made this matchup what it was, and that's what made this matchup good, was the crowd reaction, and the crowd split between both guys because both guys were facing this matchup, and that's what sort of made this matchup really good. Overall, I give this 4 3/4 stars, mainly because of the crowd, and the wrestling wasn't that bad in this matchup. I mean, there was some bad parts of wrestling in this matchup, but the wrestling wasn't that bad, as accustomed to their second match that they had at Halloween Havoc, which was atrocious. This matchup was better in comparison to that matchup, but I enjoyed that matchup. Like I said, I give it 4 3/4 stars. Very good matchup. Overall, this was not a very good WrestleMania. There was too many matches. Some of the matches on this card were too short. Some matches that shouldn't have been on the card were on the card. Some matches that should have been given enough time weren't given enough time. Some matches that were good, and that's pretty much what you got with this WrestleMania. Overall, I give this WrestleMania a 6.5 or 6.7 out of 10, as this was just a very disappointing WrestleMania. As this WrestleMania could have been good, but there was just too much crap on here with duds and star matches and matches that were short to make this WrestleMania be even worth the 8 or 9 or anything like that. Terrible WrestleMania, and I recommend, if you want to watch this WrestleMania, only watch it for the main event, maybe for Mr. Perfect versus Brutus Beefcake, and then maybe for the Orient Express against the Rockers, and if you want to see Andre the Giant in his final WrestleMania appearance, but don't watch the matchup, just skip to the end of Andre the Giant. Also, if you wanted to see the Akeem and Big Boss Man explode, if you were into that type of matchup. Overall, very disappointing WrestleMania. I wouldn't recommend this WrestleMania, only except for those matches I mentioned on the card. Everything else, I wouldn't recommend watching this WrestleMania 4, as this was just not that very good of a WrestleMania. Overall, 6.5 out of 10. Anyhow, rate, comment, and I'm out. Peace.